28 people watching already. This is amazing. I love it when I see so many people joining in on the live stream before I even get started. With 8 likes, go hit that like button when you come into the live stream. The algorithm will pick up the video and spread it around for more people to join in. Makes the conversation so much better down in the comments section. All right. Let's talk about the wave of bankruptcies, the wave of failures that is coming. This is something that I had predicted a long time ago. And now when we have people like Jeffrey Gundlach talking about it, a lot of times we end up finding mainstream media articles giving it a lot of credit, right? Giving this guy like, hey man, he's a good predictor of the economy. He's like the bond king. This guy knows his stuff, but he's been predicting a recession for like 2 years now. And 2 years ago, I was saying we're probably going to be going into what is going to be appearing to be a recessionless recession. And now, when it comes to a recessionless recession, we really have to think about the conditions that the economy was in prior to the interest rates rising, right? We were not sitting in a situation like typically anybody would have had expected. The pandemic left us in a very weird position. Think about like how many service industry jobs were available just a couple of years ago. Like, where are all the workers? Everybody was like, thinking that there was no available people to do restaurant work or bartending or working at the hotels or any of that stuff, right? They all just disappeared one day. All right? So we have to think about what was taking place. During the pandemic, there was a bailing out of the corporations. I don't know if people realize that. See, the special purpose vehicles that were set up during the pandemic to backstop every corner of the financial market had one in particular entity called a credit or the corporate debt lending facility. Now, this is a very interesting situation because it's not typical of any other, time in history when it came to the economy, because we were sitting in that unusual and exigent circumstance. Because we had the unusual and exigent circumstance, it gave the Federal Reserve and Treasury some powers that they typically would not have. Now, setting up these special purpose vehicles, which again is an entity separated from the Treasury and the Federal Reserve. And again, this could only exist in unusual and exigent circumstances. So without the pandemic, it never would have occurred. Now, the corporate debt lending facility was funded with hundreds of billions of dollars. And then the narrative was put out there. Hey, how's it going, Mike? Good, man. So they funded it with hundreds of billions of dollars and then put out the narrative out there to the mainstream media that the Federal Reserve was going to be buying corporate debt. The news spread like wildfire. Everybody was screaming, the Fed is going to be picking the winners and losers. I know, I was one of them when this information came out. But the more we started to learn about the special purpose vehicle and understanding the credible threat theory, on this channel, we quickly realized that the special purpose vehicles for the corporate debt lending facility did not buy hardly any corporate debt at all. Just the idea alone was enough to fund the corporations. They were able to get funding, right? Just by the belief from the markets that the Federal Reserve was going to be buying into it. They started front running the Federal Reserve. And now when this took place, all these corporations started gorging on incredibly cheap debt. All of a sudden they were loaded on cash. Well, what do you do if you have a lot of cash? You're going to have to start investing it into your company. You buy more buildings, equipment, you hire a lot of people, right? And that's what we started seeing taking place during the pandemic with the setup of these special purpose vehicles. So now all these corporations were loaded up on a bunch of cash. And this was before the interest rates started to rise. And I knew it then. I said, well, if these corporations are sitting on a bunch of cash and there's no available workers for the service industry, when the interest rates begin to rise, these corporations are going to have a hell of a time rolling that old debt over into new debt. Right? You go from making a 4% interest to all of a sudden you're making an 8% interest, right? Your payments double, or your interest payments double. So this is going to be a major problem for a lot of these corporations out there who had gorged on incredibly cheap debt to get all this cash and then dumped it into advancing or investing into their company but they happen to be a zombie corporation, meaning that they were never going to exist unless they could keep getting access to that cheap debt. Well, once the cheap debt goes away and it's becoming expensive, well, now corporations could no longer continue to rolling that debt into new debt, and they start going bankrupt. And this is the wave of failures that we're going to start seeing. Something that we predicted a long time ago. Right? So it's no surprise when you see articles like this coming up. Now, whether or not it's actually going to start bleeding into an actual recession, because again, Gunlack has said that there's going to be a recession for the last 2 years, and he predicted one in the first half of this year. It's not going to happen, right? I mean, could it? Sure, but we only have a couple of months left, or a couple of weeks left here before the first half of the year is over, and we're still not in a recessionary situation yet. And I do believe that this could be a recessionless recession, where we don't actually see the recession that you would typically find when it comes to any time in history. Like, what do you normally see in a recession that pisses the people off the most? They lose their job and they bail out the corporations. Well, if you lose your job at some zombie corporations and end up having to tend bar, it's not a great job. I mean, tending bar isn't a bad job. My wife did it for years, did a great job at it, made a lot of money. But it's not like making $150,000 a year working for some zombie corporations, even though you don't have a degree and you don't know what you're doing, right? Because that's essentially what ended up happening with a lot of these companies out there, is they just hired people because they couldn't find anybody, right? They just needed warm bodies, essentially. So now that that's coming to an end and these corporations are starting to fail, they're going to lose, those people are going to lose their jobs, but they're going to end up going to work at the service industry. So you're not seeing unemployment rising significantly. Yes, it's just as painful. Yeah, making $150,000 a year at, for some corporation, and then going and ended up working, $50,000, $60,000 a year tending bar, if you're lucky, right? That's not a great job, but it's a job, and you're employed, not unemployed. And so if the unemployment doesn't rise, then are we really going to be in a recessionary situation? Sure, we could be technically or even uncomfortably feeling the recession, but unless unemployment rises, then I don't imagine that we're going to be feeling the recessionary pressures like we had seen in the past, where everybody's freaking out about losing their job. And if the corporations are allowed to fail, which they appear to be allowing to fail, then we're probably not going to see the bailout that also pisses people off. And again, this is something that we have predicted on this channel for over 2 years now. And it's definitely playing out that way, like the way I had thought it would. Now, does it grow and get worse here in the few next coming months? I think it will. All right? We already have liquidity issues being announced within the treasuries. The Treasury Department has stepped up and said we are going to buy back our own bonds to make sure that this market stays liquid, even though there was plenty of statements out there saying, well, we're not doing this for liquidity issues. That's exactly what they're doing it for. They want to make sure that that market stays liquid. And the Federal Reserve is going to be helping the Treasury out by reducing the balance sheet runoff. See, the Federal Reserve was applying the brakes when it came to the balance sheet. They were allowing treasuries to roll off the balance sheet. I think it was $65 billion a month. They're taking that down to like $25 billion, something of that nature. I don't know if those numbers are exactly right, but it's really low considering what they have been doing. So it's not like they are taking their foot off the brake. What they are doing is easing up on the brake. They're not braking as hard. And that should add more liquidity to the market, as they are not pulling out as much. Right? So all this stuff is timing out perfect. I mean, for me, like, it just seems that right now, the liquidity issues are going to be coming next month. And we're probably going to find a lot of corporations failing during that time. So, all right, let's move on to some comments here. We're 9 minutes into this. We got 246 people watching with 61 likes. Be sure and hit that like button. We'll get more people into the video to join in on the comments. I got probably, 15, 20 minutes here we can go. All right. I'm not a Meet Kevin fan. Is that a block-worthy mention? Huh. What was that? Meet Kevin's sort of like the Walmart of investment channels. Wow, you guys are tearing Meet Kevin up, huh? That's weird. All right. How you doing? I'm doing awesome. All Nighter says, hi, dishes. Blah says, hola. All right, Rich, yo, UE, what is it, buddy? It's going good. We got 4 on the dice. Hi, everyone. Hi, Simon. Hey, Brody. Howdy, Simon, the economist king. Hell, I appreciate it, man. Thank you, self-education. Uh, Caveman Look, hello, all. All-Nighter says, hey, Rich, Broken Arrow, this is going to be a good one. Well, I mean, this is something that I think that we should really, to take into consideration because most everybody is already lost with their strategy because they understand the Federal Reserve at a 2% target. They don't understand anything else. And so they think that the Federal Reserve is trying to get inflation down to a 2% target, which they are not. We already learned from my channel on many videos recently that I have done that the Fed is attempting to achieve an inflation that is moderately above 2% for some time. They're going for average inflation rate over time. And, or how do they actually call it? They call it flexible average inflation targeting, FAIT, FAIT. They actually have an acronym for it. And that's what blows me away is because that is the monetary policy, moderately above 2% for some time to make up for the past deviations from the inflation target of 2%. So they abandoned it. 2012, they had the target, 2%. August 27th of 2020, they switched to flexible average inflation targeting. Right? And so that's why everybody out there has it wrong. Even the article I linked down in the description says 2% target. That is incorrect. The Federal Reserve doesn't do that. And so everybody, including Gunlack, is taking on this strategy that they're going for this 2% target. It's wrong. And so that's why he's wrong. That's why his predictions are wrong. Right? Because he doesn't know what the Federal Reserve is truly trying to do. And I'm not trying to say that I'm the smartest dude in the world. All I'm saying is that I found the statements coming from the Federal Reserve itself. Right? And I'm not trying to embellish it, make it like throw it out of proportion or anything like that. Like I'm not doing any of that stuff. I'm literally reading it word for word for what it is, And that's the problem that most people are facing. Like 99.9% of the people out there have no idea about the average inflation rate over time, and everybody is considering it a 2% target that the Fed is going for. It is so dangerous to believe that. And it's literally everybody. And I mean, like, everybody. Hey, UE, it would be cool if you did a playlist called UE Explains, and you did short explanations of things like, what is a bond? Your explanation of this the other day really helped me. Yeah, hey, sir, actually, I've done that. I've done, what is a bond videos. The problem that I end up doing is I've done so many videos now, and I've never added them to any kind of playlist or anything like that. So they're just so random throughout all my what, 1,500? I don't even know how many videos I have now. There's a lot there, but I guess I could redo them because probably redoing a lot of these videos now with the current, situations that we're experiencing might actually help. So yeah, thanks for the video ideas. I might do that. Yeah. And if you like, if you want me to explain the bond, yeah, I mean, because once you understand the bond and you understand like coupons as opposed to yield, man, it really starts to clear up a lot of the issues that you have when it comes to understanding like the treasury market, sovereign debt, what it is that the Federal Reserve is purchasing, how they get a hold of that, what kind of impact that has to the rest of the financial markets. It makes so much more sense. All right. I would feel sad to sell all AMC, go out of business. Do you think the future is direct to home movies? I don't know. My family and I, we go out to the movies because we actually like going to the theater and watching movies. But I would imagine that it's becoming less and less. It's probably going to end up being more at home because really you can have some pretty good setups at home that make the feeling of being on the big screen almost as good, right? You got great sound systems, you got these huge TV screens. So yeah, I can imagine going to the movies is going to be less. Broken Arrow, yes, usually we see the anchor stores go first, things not looking good for Target. How's that? Oh, that's my school. Okay, definitely unfortunate because movies do expensive. AMC goes under first. Streaming will win like what happened to Blockbuster. Unemployment is about to skyrocket. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm still waiting for that because that's ultimately going to be the cue for me that you're going to start seeing interest rate cuts. Now, how it is that people are like, no, the Fed's going to get it down to 2% probably in the next 6, 7, 8 months, whatever they make this prediction, and then they'll cut rates. And I'm thinking, no, they're not. Like, that's not part of their monetary policy. Why would they do that? That doesn't make any sense. Like, you're making that up. Like, or you're believing that from the past, right? But I don't know if there's going to be any interest rate cuts without unemployment rising. All right, the single person got around 2,500. How do they think people still have that money? You know, it was kind of funny because, like, I did a video called "The Rich Have No Idea What the Poor Will Do." And in that video, I said that the poor would probably hold on to as much of that stimulus as they could, knowing that there was an inflationary scenario coming and hoping that that extra money, the extra money, would help offset the added expenses from the inflationary pressure. And it turned out that actually was the case, right? I mean, I know this from being poor. I know that I work hard every single day and that if I had a chunk of money, my buddies might go and blow it, but me personally was going to end up holding on to it for that exact reason. It was that I know what it's like to have to scrounge around to come up with a gallon of milk, with the money for a gallon of milk. Like, I know that feeling. And I know that if I had a chunk of money that I would try and hold on to it as long as I possibly could. Yeah. That's what, I mean, that's what responsible poor people do. And just because you're poor doesn't make you irresponsible. But a lot of people who are poor is because they're irresponsible and they would just blow that money. Yeah. All right, UE question. What do you think? Cybersecurity or computer jobs will be hard to get even though it's not as economically as economy goes down. Cybersecurity or computer jobs. I would think that that would be more. Like, I would think cybersecurity would end up being more prevalent or a need for that going into the future. You know, me personally, I would believe that. And computers in general. Very low likelihood of a recession due to the strength of the consumer. They have low debt to income, high savings balance, and are in the best position in pretty much all history in the U.S. Was that quoted out of there? I didn't even read that part. All right. IT jobs are incredibly hard to find right now for information. Great content. Keep up the great info sharing. Well, thank you very much, Charlie. I mean, I try to put this stuff together and I try to be very consistent. Like, I'm not trying to be outlandish, although sometimes the titles I try to make a little bit more on the fear-mongering kind of, shocking kind of style of things. If I'm descriptive, if I'm being descriptive with the title, I don't get the views. It just simply doesn't happen, right? The video itself, I'm not a fearmonger. Like, this is the way it is. This is exactly the way I see it. If it's scary to you, then it happens to be scary to you. I'm not trying to scare anybody with the information. A lot of people think that it's like I'm being like some kind of doom and gloomer or something out there. It's not even the case. I don't look at it like that at all. When I take this information, I look at it as saying, wow, even some of this is pretty heavy. Who knows what's going to happen in the future? I need to take this information and be able to make the best decisions for myself. That's what this is all about, right? There's nothing fearful. There's nothing scary. There's nothing bad or good about any of this stuff. It's just like the weather or anything else out there. You really have to take the information in for what it is for yourself, be able to use that to position yourself, and then, hope that you're aware of the circumstances at hand, I mean. All right, let me cruise down here to the bottom, get caught up. Wow, look at all these comments. My goodness. Wow. Okay, here we go. All right, let me cruise all the way down to the bottom. So, UE, can you and Owen Benjamin connect again? He always talks about you. Be a great guest on his channel. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it sounds great. Like, for a while there, I was really motivated to do the interviews. And you would be surprised, like, trying to work a day job and then work interviews into the middle of the day of my day job as well. It was just like a logistical nightmare trying to get it done. Not making up excuses for it, but like pushing that for like the month and a half or 2 months that I did, it was like a lot, to make it happen. It was fun though. It was really cool. And I think that I actually do really well at conducting interviews, considering that I don't do them with a script. I don't have a list of questions. I'm literally just, engaging in the conversation and thinking up the next question on the fly. And it was pretty fun to do all those. It's actually kind of funny. At one point, I was thinking about this. I was when I was interviewing George Gammon one time, he started cutting off into something, and it was getting like over my head. Like I didn't understand what he was talking about. And I'm like, oh crap, I'm in the middle of this interview with him. And I got to ask him another question, and I have no idea what he's talking about right now. And so, like, he kind of finishes what he says, and I just, like, popped off with another question. But, that kind of thing does happen, especially if you're not scripting them out. All right, moving on. Let's see here. Just let me know if this thesis is right. USA will support interest rate cuts because USA has to support the tech and defense industry to counter China. So I guess they'll cut interest rates. Nah, I don't think so. I mean, I think the Federal Reserve is mandated to do two things: low and stable prices and full employment. So long as they have unemployment really low like it is, and the prices are moderately above 2%, that'll probably be the case for some time. Right now, the Fed is not trying to change anything. This is the sweet spot for them. Low unemployment and inflation moderately above 2%. It's like, this is exactly what they would have been asking for. Now, whether or not they can keep it going, that's like the question, because it's all about their statements and the communications out there. Only 1 in 3 hitting that thumbs up. You deserve better. Well, thank you, Donald. I agree. Go hit that thumbs up button. We got 320 people watching and 120 thumbs up. We should have at least 300 thumbs up right now. I will be out here. Well, let's see. What time did I take off? I could probably be out here for another 10 or 15 minutes. Hey, Deja Vu. Thank you so much for reconnecting with the membership. And that's another thing. I mean, we break down these speeches, these Fed speeches. We break down things like dollar funding stresses in China. I break down all these documents in member-only videos, and it's $1 a month. Like, it's literally insignificant, amount of money. $12 a year, $120 a decade, right? I mean, it's like almost no cost to it whatsoever. But the information that is within it, the comment section, absolutely brilliant, right? This is the way that you truly get an understanding of what's going on with the economy. There's people out there who will blow things way out of proportion to get the views. And I know how that works. Like, I've done it at times to try and get more revenue to come in. Like, I can be outlandish. I can throw, some scary titles out there. I can do all that other stuff. But is that helpful to you? I mean, is that truly getting you to understand what it is that's going on with the economy, to be able to position yourself for the best, opportunities for yourself? Probably not, right? But understanding it from the Fed's own statements, their own, data, their own documents, to understand what it is that they're going to do with monetary policy, that's the way it's done, right? And that's where I find these member-only videos to be the best way to do that. All right, boy, what is that? Shrickeneth? I'm sorry, I'm just terrible with names. Thank you so much for joining. All right, I did my job. Hit the like. Thank you for hitting the like button. I hope the Fed can pull off a soft landing, because layoffs suck for us normies. All I hear now is potential layoffs, but then I see shortages on items. Well, that's what you're going to end up finding, is there is going to be a moment when the unemployment rises. And when that happens, that's when the Federal Reserve will start to position change the position on monetary policy. But we haven't seen it yet, right? We are going to see it at some point in the future. So as they're going to be able to pull off a soft landing, I think they kind of are doing that now, right? If the recession has already been pre-bailed out, if unemployment doesn't rise, because if you lose all the layoffs, allow for the service industry to start finding the employees, the labor, then is that the soft landing? Like, yeah, it sucks that you lost your job, but there is an available job. Yeah, it sucks that these corporations are failing, but the government's not bailing them out. Right? I mean, that's the recessionless recession. That's the soft landing, right? Jesus, thank you so much for joining the channel, man. All right. First time listener, what is your educational reference in economics? Don't have to be formal, but would like to know. Well, Football Fred, I'm going to tell you right now that I have no economic background. I have never taken a class. I have no degree. I've never worked in finance. I don't come from a family of wealth. I don't own businesses. I don't have any reason for you to believe anything that I have ever said or anything that I say is like legitimate information. I don't give you any reason to believe any of that stuff, right? I leave the links down in the description of every one of my videos so that you can go and judge the information for yourself. I have been studying this stuff just about every single day for the last 15, 20 years. I'll put in anywhere from 3 to 4 hours of research every single day. I've been invited to speak at the Rebel Capitalist live event. I did that in Houston a couple of years ago. I'll be doing that again in a couple of weeks. I've been on stage and spoken with guys like G. Edward Griffin. I've spoken with all kinds of famous YouTube economists out there. So I don't really have any reason or any kind of credentials to prove to you what it is that I know. But 137,000 other people have found some sort of usefulness out of my information that I have been presenting out there, and I'm just going to let that part speak for itself. All right, moving on. All right, question. I've seen a lot of large companies start to acquire the smaller companies. Will this be a trend alongside the bankruptcies? Yeah, I would imagine that acquisitions are going to be huge. Like, that's going to be a huge thing, especially in the banking industry. Like, I can see eventually, like, we will have a financial banking system that doesn't really have a whole lot of local banks or regional. Like, everything's going to be like major national-wide banks, like just the major players out there. Psychologically engineered soft landing. Absolutely. I highly recommend the member subscription. Need more time to look backwards at the older videos. Yeah, and I'm gonna try and at least be once a week with the member only videos, if not twice a week. It's probably going to be more about when the information is coming out, like, the Fed speeches and stuff that I feel is appropriate for understanding what is going on within the monetary policy. I mean, all those speeches are appropriate, but not always do we want to sit around and listen for 2 hours on something that's boring, that doesn't really give us any kind of real good information, although I don't see how all information couldn't be real good, Moving on here. Service jobs do not produce intrinsic wealth. Do you think manufacturing is the answer? Well, absolutely manufacturing is the answer. The only problem is that you're not going to be able to manufacture here in the United States and be competitive. All right? I mean, we've already learned this through Cantillon's essay on economic theory. If you haven't read this, absolute must read. All right? Out of all the books that I've ever read, which is 2 of them, this is one of them. All right? The chapters and part 2, increase and decrease of money to the state, chapters 6, 7, and 8, right? Absolutely telling of how it is that the manufacturing of a nation leaves that nation due to the foreign competition that is coming in. And the reason why that has taken place is because of the standard of living has increased and the people are moving into luxuries. It is something that it's been told hundreds of years ago, right? And so I left a link down in the description of this video to an Amazon affiliate link where you can purchase this book, but you don't have to purchase the book. You can actually get it for free at the Mises Institute. So if you just type in Cantillon essay on economic theory, you're going to be able to find it there at the Mises Institute for free. And I suggest everybody read that. Simon, do you ever feel people have across your videos? Do you ever feel people from have across your videos? I'm not sure what the question is there. Sorry. All right, Simon, do you think Trump can give America a soft landing? I don't think Trump can do anything. Like I don't give that much credit to the politics because I don't feel that politics really caused the problem. And the reason why I don't look at it that way is because by considering politics caused the problem, then you would have to understand or have a belief that politics can also fix the problem. And I don't believe that's possible. Like the problem exists because the industriousness of the people, which wasn't political, became producers and savers, again, was not political. Those producers and savers started increasing their standard of living, which wasn't political. Right? That standard of living started increasing the luxuries, which wasn't political. That increase of luxury started driving out the domestic manufacturers and driving in ever increasing amounts of foreign production, which wasn't political because it's described right here, right? Described hundreds of times. Like, I mean, well, give hundreds of examples throughout history that this is the way that it goes down, right? Now, you can have political interference and have all kinds of noise and show and all kinds of like, appearance of being the issue, but it's not. It's due to the fact that the people had a higher standard of living and moved into luxuries. That's the problem, right? That's the problem right there in a nutshell. It's easy to understand once you get it, right? But to believe that you can change it or reverse it, it's not possible. It's just like, I've thought about it a million times. I mean, like, this is something that I thought hard about. Like, how do you change the political environment? How do you change the manufacturing environment, the social environment? How do you change the people's beliefs? You can't. Like, it's human instinctual behavior to work hard, become industrious, produce, save, and then enjoy it. That's the problem, enjoying it, right? Like, working hard, producing, and saving is all good. Like, some people just like that part of it. Like, I mean, I know I like working hard, producing, and saving, but I do also like enjoying it. And that's difficult for me because I know how hard and damaging it will be on your life if you fall into the luxurious pleasures. All right. Pursuit more or less until they need to drop rates in an attempt to refloat liquidity. Hey, if possible, please take my question. All right, Parth, where is it? Let me go up there and find it. I don't know where it is, bro. Sorry, man. See, this is another reason why I like the member-only live streams, is because you can actually get your question in there and I will answer it. And like other people within the community will also, join in. Nice. I've just gotten into economics as a dropout economics student. Take the free course with MIT to get a foundation. See, this is the reason I would suggest that you don't do that. I would suggest that you don't get the foundation from the typical sources that you would find out there, because what they're going to do is they're going to set you up with a belief in a system that is going to be very hard to recondition into understanding it for yourself. See, this is one of the things that I think I have an advantage over most people when it comes to like those who even have economics degrees and stuff, is because they have built it from that foundation and now they got this base. Right? And now they have to like incorporate all these other ideas onto this base that they have. I don't have a base. I don't have like any kind of understanding of way the economy should be or is, or the way that it functions or anything like that. Everything that I learned as an either observing or like picking up, essays like this and reading about it and piecing together all the different parts of how the economy works, to the point that now I look at it in a much different fashion. I mean, to the point that I can see things and talk about things in a way that just like blows people's minds, right? And I'm not trying to brag, but I do this every single day. Like this is what I do every day, 3 hours a day or more, And once you start piecing these, like if you have a question about it, just go and research it. Like, what's money velocity? What's inflation? What's fractional reserve banking? What's a mortgage-backed security? What's credit default swaps? Just ask the question, go Google, go look at it. If you're reading through it and you're not understanding the things that are being said within the description of those items, study those things until you figure it out. Like, there was times I would pick up a Federal Reserve speech, it would take me 2 weeks to get through it. Like, literally reading it over and over again. I'd come across a sentence that I didn't understand. I'd read the sentence over and over again and like try to figure out what is it that they're trying to talk about. They got all these little footnotes. I would go and read all the little, read the information coming from the footnotes, realizing all that stuff I had to decipher through. It would take me forever to try and get through a speech, right? But once I started figuring it out and started going through these speeches and doing it regularly, I was picking up the understanding of what it is that the Federal Reserve was trying to say. I was picking up their monetary policy. I was like sitting in the room with them, listening to the point that now I could understand the conversation that they were having. And when I started recognizing some of the issues that they were facing with their monetary policy going back 20 years ago, like literally 20 years ago, Ben Bernanke was talking about what happens when they run into the lower bound of zero and they have a deflationary nightmare that's approaching and they don't know exactly what to do because the dropping of interest rates was not going to be an effective tool. He was talking about that way back in 2002, right? And this is how like I picked up like I didn't know that speech existed until somebody actually, emailed it to me and says, hey, check out this portion of it. But once I read through that speech and I was like, holy crap, man, they're going to use their words, jawbone, incredible threats to guide the markets. And they're talking about this 20 years ago. Well, here it is 20 years later, and they have all these tools for communication, things that they never had before. Like back in the 80s, they didn't tell the markets or anybody that they were going to adjust interest rates. You would just wake up one morning and boom, interest rates were adjusted. They thought it was better to shock the markets with monetary policy. Now they realize that if they put out forward guidance, not only can they enhance their monetary policy, but they can actually guide monetary policy without ever doing anything, just by simply talking about the future of what it is they plan on doing. And understanding that is something that almost nobody does. Like almost nobody. There is lessons in talk of forward guidance, but that's not the same thing as credible threats. Forward guidance is when the Fed says, yes, at the next meeting, we are going to cut rates, we are going to raise rates, right? When they say, we are going to do this, it may be a quarter point, it may be 3/4 of a percentage, right? That is forward guidance. Now, when you put out a dot plot at the end of the year that says 7 interest rates coming to the future, and everybody takes that as being written in stone, that's the failure of their communication. They screwed that up. They wanted the market to believe that there was going to be rate cuts because they were trying to actually get lower interest rates into the market, and if they can get the people to believe that there's going to be cuts coming into the future, then they'll start conducting themselves and creating the situation that actually causes rates to come down, even before the Fed does anything. And now they realized it with their communications. It's like, whoa, man, they really took that one seriously, and it created a lot of volatility within the markets. Like the Fed hasn't done nothing. They haven't even adjusted their balance sheet yet. That happens next month. It's been months and months and months and months since the Fed has done anything. They sit on their hands. But everybody changes their strategies, their beliefs, their positions on what it is that the Federal Reserve is going to do, believing that there is going to be interest rate cuts coming because of the plot map, that dot plot, and thinking that they're going down to a 2% target. That is, none of that stuff exists. It's all delusion, right? And I mean, that is literally like, it's imagination. It's literally imagination. And there's no real viable strategy associated with the 2% target or interest rate cuts coming into the future. Like, no viable strategy there. But yet people are doing it. People are buying houses, taking out, investments, doing all kinds of stuff, believing those two things. I got to go, guys. I'm going to be late going back to work, but this was a very fun live stream. We have 345 people watching right now with 187 likes. And let me give one more here. Yeah, I graduated in 2008 and there were no jobs back then. These jobs suck, but at least there is something. Yeah, and that's what I agree with that. Like, I'm not saying they're great jobs, and I'm not even saying they're the job you have, but it's at least work. It's working. You're not unemployed, right? All right, Will, thank you so much. Later, Simon, thanks for the stream. Yeah, well, thank you for being here. Brody, why do people do that? What are we talking about? 2% target claim is a crutch for them to lean on after they screw up. Yeah. All right. What happens if the Fed can't use the forward guidance and credible threat practices anymore? Do you think they have a plan after that fails? I mean, yeah, I would imagine that they probably do have some sort of plan for it, but it seems to be working so well right now. I don't know why it would fail. Like, people would have to figure it out that that's what they're doing, and 99.9% of the people have no clue, right? They don't have any clue about flexible average inflation targeting. They don't have any idea about, like, the credible threat theory. They don't understand any of that. They don't understand that communications that they are doing right now mean more than anything else. In fact, very little else matters except for the communications. Right? So once people start to figure that out, they'll realize that, okay, the Federal Reserve's been crying wolf. But they don't know that. They don't know any of this stuff, right? Except for the people here on my channel, apparently, in the Federal Reserve themselves, because they talk about it. But nobody, like, no mainstream media articles, no economists, no, not Gunlack, not anybody else. Nobody I see takes in the idea of flexible average inflation targeting over time and, you know, the idea of a credible threat theory from the Ben Bernanke speech talking about the guy who invents a gold machine. I mean, like, once you see it, you can't unsee it. Like, it's just so obvious that you look around and you're like, man, are all these people delusional? Yeah, maybe one day they'll figure it out. They're not. They're not figuring it out. So as long as they don't figure it out, the Federal Reserve still has their credible threats, and it will continue to work. Yeah. How come UE is not rich? He's better. These influence out there. Okay, well, I mean, think about this for a second, man. Just a few years ago, I was $20,000 in debt, no car, broke, had no money, no job. Like, I had a job, but I didn't have a car. I didn't have anything going on, right? Like, nothing. Now I'm buying a house. I have, you know, almost half a Bitcoin. I have, you know, stock assets. You know, I have stuff going on. So, like, I can't make it rich in a matter of minutes. Like, there was ways that I probably could have. Like, I could have been done right now if I'd done the sponsorships. Like, I mean, you know, I could have been making, you know, $30,000, $40,000 a week if I took all the sponsorships or something like that. I mean, it's a ridiculous how much they pay. But that doesn't feel good to me. Like, I don't know, like, even if I had that, like, would that be like, I mean, I know I could use it to benefit my family, but is that really the direction I'm going? Like, is that really what I want to do with my life? Is that, like, the progress in which that I'm seeking is to become rich? I mean, my whole, like, I feel awesome just being able to pay my bills. Like, be able to pay a bill at will without any stress over that. That's what I was going for. That was my dream. Not to have $100 million or even $1 million. Like, I don't even know what I'd do with that. I'd buy a Camaro. That's what I would do. Like, that's the one thing I could think of that I would do with it. You know? And then have it for my family. But that's, I don't have a desire to do that. Like, you know, to be filthy rich or to spend all my time trying to figure out how it is that I can make $100 million in my life. I don't know why that would be awesome. Right? I think my life is awesome. I get to kind of do what I want. I travel around. I get to meet cool people. You know, it's pretty comfortable. I live in a nice area. Like, I think I got it going on, really. You know. All right, guys, I gotta go. Uneducated economist, you let me know.